All right, well, good morning, everyone. It's still morning. We'll introduce ourselves here in a second. Start by just basically saying we're really kind of humbled with the crowd that we have in the room today. You know, Jay and I worked together and we put together a lot of thoughts that we want to share with you. But you know, I really feel like we could make this very interactive today. None of us is as smart as all of us. And you all probably could stand up here and say a lot of the same things that we're talking about. So hopefully we're able to provide you some insights and some knowledge and some tips and really impart some examples on what it is that we think can be successful for anyone. So we're really excited about the opportunity to share that. But if you have questions along the way, if you have a thought you want to share, please participate. So I'm Francis Vonderhaar. I'm the VP and GM of imaging over at PartSource. I've been there for about 3 years and been doing imaging for about 35 years in various different places. So we're really happy here to talk to you today. And Jay.
So when you guys score this, make sure you score well for Francis. Don't let my speaking abilities reflect on him, please. No, I'm Jay Olson, Director of Marshfield Clinic Biomedical Services. We're a regional shop. So I think I'll divide and conquer here, so you guys maybe hurt your necks. I can set my papers down someplace. So I am a biomed by trade. I actually got into the field. I served in the military in '97. I finally got the best job in my life. I got into biomed. There was a little slower industry back then. So in '97, I landed my first biomed job. I've been in a 2-man biomed shop. I moved to a 10-man biomed shop. I managed Wisconsin dialysis services, which was the equipment. I got into Ministry Biomed, which was a 22 biomed shop system. And then I actually, short term after that, by evolution, I became Trimedics for a few years, learned a lot of great things. And then my final resting point in 2017, I landed with Marshfield Clinic. One thing with all of that, I've been at our industry is amazing. I'm in rural Wisconsin, Marshfield's population, 19,000. All of these jobs, I still lived at the same address. I still have the same house I built in '97. I'm still there. So there's one thing that is consistent in healthcare: change. You just have to adapt to it. So a little bit of history with joining Marshfield Clinic in 2017. I came on board. We had 5,600 pieces of equipment. It was going to be my final run. It was like, man, I can manage this. It's going to be a nice, clean database. 6 months later, we bought our first hospital. Another month, I don't know, about another 6 months, we built another hospital. Anyways, 12 hospitals later, currently managing over 39,000 pieces of equipment. Plus now we're newly partnered with Sanford. So we're now actually part of the largest rural healthcare system in the United States. So very exciting, very exciting. So just a little history. Thank you. Didn't want to put you to sleep.
All right, what are we going to do today? We've got some really exciting things that we want to share with you, and we'll repeat our themes throughout the next hour or so. But we want to talk about becoming proactive. The main objective of our strategy today is to move our thinking, move our behavior, move the work that we do and the data that we use that drives our work from reactive, which is inevitable, to proactive. And that's really what we're going to talk to you about, some ways that happens, and we're going to exemplify that through some storytelling. We're going to, of course, talk about AI in this space. And it's really going to be an exciting little opportunity. We'd love to spend the whole hour talking to you about just this AI piece. But let's all face it, the labor shortage is requiring everyone in this room to become more innovative with how we use our labor. And it's not that AI will take any of these jobs away, but it'll sure make the jobs a lot more efficient and productive. So we're going to talk about some of the real tools that are in place right now and some things that we see across the horizon. We're going to talk about the various different ways that you can approach service. And we really do think there's always a balance between doing work in-house being an OEM, and being an independent company. There's a very, very smart blend, and Jay's going to give some real examples about how that looks. We're going to provide a bit of a framework on how you would analyze some of that. So we'll talk about some of those pieces. And really, we're going to use Jay's story throughout the day today to exemplify what it is we do. So first, let me tell you about some of the key trends in the industry. It's pretty obvious that this slide isn't exactly coming up correctly. That's better. It's pretty obvious that inflation is a part of our everyday world, right? I mean, that's just part of our world in and of itself. So what's interesting is we like to spend a significant amount of time each year at my employer researching the market, identifying the specific trends that are happening, and sharing those trends with the market, with our customer base, with the industry. And some of this data that we're going to show you today is from that research that we've done over this past year. And again, if we use 2020 as a basis for labor cost, we ask ourselves, what is the labor cost associated with parts, et cetera, parts, labor, and service agreements now in 2025? And it's a little bit startling. If CPI in the world is 3%, or maybe it's even 5%, maybe if it's even 8%, the cost of labor has gone up 127%, and the cost of parts has gone up 130%. Isn't that amazing? Here's something even more interesting. The cost of service agreements, which is the combination of parts and labor, has gone up 140%. What's happening there? There's obviously, there's profit taking that's occurring in the cost of contracts, and there's value being delivered in cost of contracts. So those two go hand in hand.
Part of that too is the extended, they try to extend, there it is, it finally popped up, the extended asset lives. We're going beyond, there's no capital. I mean, we're trying to replace stuff that's hitting the end of life with limited parts, and then you hit end of service, you can't even get contracts, and you're on your own and you're fixing that yourself. But and there is no capital money to replace that. So we've got some pretty creative ideas. Hopefully we can cover with you and give you some ideas with that.
Yep. And the mix is changing. Take note of this. Over the next 10 years, there's going to be fewer hospitals by a small amount, 1 to 2%, literally fewer hospitals than there are today. But the growth in the regional, ambulatory, and ancillary services is going to be huge at 10 to 12% more. So as you're thinking about what's ahead of you, know that this is affecting what that view looks like. And we thought it was important to provide that information for you. So look, it's pretty clear, escalating costs are driving the need to take a new approach. They're driving the need for us collectively as an industry to really get more proactive about what is happening in the world and identify what actions can take place because of that. The operations are only going to get more complex. And so let's walk through a little bit about how that complexity is going to manifest itself. First of all, tariffs have been an interesting topic. Geez, in the last 48 hours, tariffs have been an interesting topic. And the cost of goods has gone up about 6% overall because of tariffs. But the cost of medical parts has gone up about an additional 1.6 to 2% on top of that. So you all are faced with a significantly higher cost basis. Jay, how does that affect you at Marshfield?
So we have our biomed spend is enterprise or SSO. So every hospital that we bought or built, all 39,000 pieces of equipment, I manage the contracts, the service, the parts, the labor, everything into that. So yeah, 7 to 10%, that'd be beautiful for my budget. I'm running I think last year I had an $18.4 million budget for all inclusive, all equipment. They crank it up 7%. I am actually down to 18 million even because I'm dropping contracts. I'm being aggressive with our services. So as that continues to go up, and I think I got a marginal 3% increase for my parts and my some of the inflationary items. So it doesn't match up. So you just got the old saying, doing more with less, but we truly are. So
who else can relate? You're going to see 7 to 10% increase in costs, and you're all getting what, flat, maybe a couple percentage points? Is that everybody here? Has anybody escaped that trap? Yeah, this is a pretty common dilemma. This quantifies that for you. Look, we could talk all day about labor, this next topic up here. We just all know that labor is becoming more scarce. And really, it's about an 18% growth in just repair demand, by the way. This isn't even just talking about the labor decreasing pool. This is just saying there's going to be more stuff to do, about 18% as we look ahead. And this third piece is downtime. Now, I guess it's Captain Obvious, downtime costs money, right? Everybody knows downtime costs money. So you ask yourselves, if everybody knows downtime costs money, why does only 6% of the world get proactive about downtime? Like, what's going on? Why is almost everybody reactive to the fact that downtime costs money? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how you can get more proactive and ways to actually make that happen. And then lastly, spending money on contracts, spending money on various different services that you purchase is inevitable. It's part of a good overall health system and part of that ecosystem. But research has found that for the same assets, for the same level of service, we find this massive disparity in what is spent to cover it, 470% between customer A and customer Z. There is a massive disparity, simply to say there is instant opportunity to learn how to consolidate and pull costs together and minimize costs to a least common denominator. So we ask ourselves, well, again, why proactive now? Well, proactive is really where we need to go. Proactive is where the industry is going to expect us to be. And it's really almost how proactive now? How do we make that happen? How is it that we do that piece? And what we found is the first and foremost problem is that leaders know this. You all know that you want to be proactive about these, but you don't have the data to do anything about it. And this isn't about guessing what to do going forward. This is all about knowing what to do to go forward and what the impact of your work is. And so again, only 6% saying they've got a way to even get data that gives them the ability to predict anything about the world that they take care of. And ultimately, there's two things that can happen with this. Number one, data has to become real time. If we're saying proactive occurs not anecdotally, but with data, data has to be real time. Data can't be reactive. Now, again, it'll be part of our world and it'll never go away. But being proactive, we found can reduce costs by 25%. And Jay is going to show you and tell you some of the examples he's done that. He's going to share how he's made that happen. And again, look, history is a predictor of the future. So we want to understand what that looks like. Now, on the right side of the screen is a bunch of text. I grabbed that, and there's a QR code down there. That QR code, feel free to scan it. That is our annual HTM report. It's a 80-page report. Is that about right, Chris? 79? Right around 80 pages. You'll find it a very rich read in learning more about some of the details behind the data that we have up here. And it goes into so many topics we do not have time to talk about today. It's a published report. You're welcome to have it. We build it so that you all can learn and get educated. So that's just a quick excerpt, and that's what that's going to look like. Well, Jay, why don't you share with everybody then how it is that you're starting to make this work and get traction with it?
So again, a lot of my war stories are over a couple Leinenkugels, or else it's Saturday, so it'd be old fashions today. But Leinenkugels is one of the best breweries in the United States. It's out of Wisconsin.
They only sell that beer in Wisconsin, though, Jay. So
Saturdays are old fashions. But you know, when you're reactive versus proactive, one of the things, service contracts, a lot of times I come across them. They're a 5-year term. At the end of the contract, you're almost at the mercy to try to pick it up. I more envision it as with if you're if you're on a service contract, you're riding along. You're along for the ride. You really don't know where you're going. You know, you don't get simple things like I have technicians right now that we've gone through some base training and they're collecting tube usage. Oh my gosh, I don't know, last service contract, I can paw through them. I can never see the tube usage on there. They never really, you know, when they come through and do those annual PMs, they do the cleaning, they do all this great stuff. You look on the report and there's no usage. You have no projection or idea. Stratton tube, average Stratton tube in our system, I can get about 400,000 scan seconds before we're predicting, okay, we should probably get something in the budget or look at that. We have 17 CTs, so I got a pretty good risk pool. But if all 17 of those blew at one time, I'd be looking for a new job. But we dropped these $200,000 contracts, and we have a risk pool. We built that again with that enterprise spend. We own all the spend, so we can take that risk. But I'm still flying blind if I'm not collecting that data or looking at the usage. You know, there's common failure parts that really to dig through the service histories through your vendors. If you have that in your own database, we have TMS where our parts are populated right into the material use. Every part that was ever put into that piece of equipment is on a work order and searchable, and you can actually trend the history and the spend on it. So yeah, your reactive at best is just putting out fires. You got to get ahead of it. You got to start and again, those contracts, you're basically letting them run your equipment for you. So.
I think one of the things that we see as well, as Jay was mentioning, is that knowledge is what we're talking about. Getting to the data, getting to the facts is what you need. And when the program is in other people's control, either department's control or maybe it's a collective set of contracts and it's really in the control of the service provider, it's hard to have the knowledge to become active, to take and use the information. And so,
one slide again, I skipped. I should stick to the script here, Jay. Some of that ABC, when you're dropping a contract, we'll talk a little bit about that more, but I have a pocket full of either my staff are getting trained. I have third-party vendors that when we talked about end of service, end of life equipment before, I have help with that yet. I can still get parts for the stuff that manufacturer can no longer support. And then C would be I got to go back to the OEM. I got to always get help from the OEM if it's still serviceable. I always call it the 80-20 rule. You know, if you're changing out, starting to shotgun you get down to the point of shotgunning. We don't like to say that out loud in the biomed world, but when you're shotgunning parts and it's a $30,000 board, I'd rather bring the OEM in for $5,000 to swap that part out for me. So it's a balance, but you got to have that playbook put together when you start being proactive with that. So sorry, thank you.
You're good.
Keep on going. Yeah, this, right off of this is just kind of talk about what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at parts service, our talent, what I've done with our staff. Again, I'm in a rural setting with I don't have biomeds falling out of the trees. The closest school I have next to the biomed school is probably 3 hours away. And it's hard to round up talent. So. Yeah, this will just a little more rundown. The rural footprint, I get a kick out of this when I'll bring an intern or new person into our system. We have you saw the first slide where we have a whole bunch of hospitals, 12 hospitals, but they're not that big of hospitals. The biggest one we have is Marshfield. I'll take them up to the 8th floor and we'll look out. I was looking on oh my gosh, it's just gorgeous. I was up on where am I, the 30th floor. I look out the window last night. You just, got a couple snapshots, sent it to the kids. Kind of a little different view from Marshall. You go up to the 8th floor and there's about Walmart, maybe a 3/4 mile, not even a half mile out. And then I got farms and countryside all through all that area. Where I'm blessed is we have a Marshall, I put a little plug in for my hospital, but we have a 500-bed hospital with an oncology center. We got a children's hospital. We got a neonatal ICU, all in this little population, 19,000 town. So we really leverage our rural healthcare. And along with that, some of the proactive playbook on this our closest vendors are 3-4 hours away. You know, it's either the Twin Cities or else Milwaukee, Chicago. We're right central Wisconsin. We have some, you know, guys that are in our area, but if you need parts or if you need high level service, we're on our own. So, again, and I spoke about this. I think the key to all my successes is in 2017, when I came on board in Marshville Clinic, we were building, we were growing. I said, hey, let me just take care of that biomed budget. And we put it all under one bucket. That's the best way to operate. Otherwise, you have individual departments, a little critical access hospital, they blow a tube. It's $200,000 out of their operating budget versus my $18 million budget where I have that plan for. So definitely, I call it self-insured.
So as Jay mentioned, there's these categories that we want to get proactive about, right? Parts, service, talent, etc. And so let's talk a little bit more about how do you get proactive with parts? And we're going to approach this answer with two different solutions. Number one is what has been implemented, and I think what a lot of you all have, which is who has a shop that has spare parts that are needed in the room on the side, stacked up to the ceiling in boxes and bins, that they're there when you need them. Most everybody has that, right? So that's smart. Everybody knows why we do that. But that's one solution to being proactive at parts, is to have spare parts that fail. Second one, and we'll go into it in a little bit, is understand which part is going to fail before it happens, and then take action on it before the failure. We'll show you some of that a little bit here in just a few minutes. But let's talk about getting the right part. So everybody gets it. Let's get the mission critical part that is going to be the most required part. What I always tell my team is it's the part that would take a mission critical system hard down. That's it. That ain't every part, but there are parts that take mission critical systems hard down. And so really the approach is really find the mission critical equipment. And mission critical can be different in different places. We did an analysis for one customer, and you know what the mission critical equipment was? Portable x-ray machines. Like, how the heck is a portable x-ray machine your mission critical device? Stop. In fact, the mission critical component that they needed the most, who wants to guess what it was? What fails on a portable? The batteries. The batteries. Like, no, this is not what I had in mind. I really wasn't thinking we would be storing batteries for a portable x-ray machine in someone's secure storage facility. Now, but that's exactly what they needed, which interestingly enough, saved them a lot of money, because the data said they spent more on the shipment of batteries to get them there the next day than the batteries themselves cost them. And they did this about 8 times a year. And so the ability for the properly analyzed and properly staged mission critical equipment, let the data tell you what that is, let the data bring you to the SKU that would give you the answer on what it is you should stock, will have the impact that you're looking for. So the idea is that you've got to have a process. So there's some pretty cool processes that allow this to happen, but it's an analysis that ultimately leads to a list of SKUs, right? You're going to want to start with about 10 or 20. But to get there, you want to ask yourselves these questions. What's the operational impact? What's the impact? And ultimately, we do want to see reduced part costs. Yes. Budgets are real. Parts costs are up 7%. Your budgets are flat, maybe up 3, maybe down. So that is an important part. And if I can save $2,000 from shipping a set of AMX batteries, or in this case, Carestream batteries, that is real money being saved. Reduce time to repair. I've got what I need when it's there. That seems obviously pretty obvious. And avoiding the emergency freight charges is key. But the most important part is protecting the asset availability, is protecting the patient throughput, protecting the revenue stream. If you're employed by a health system or you work in a company that helps out a health system. That health system is probably operating on 1% margins. 1%. How does a health system save $1 million? You don't raise another 100 million in revenue to come up with $1 million in the end. That's not a thing. That doesn't happen. That can't happen. That $1 million gets saved by incrementally and accumulatively saving along the way. So this is a really important part of this. But you know what? A lot of people do this. A lot of people do forward deploy of mission critical parts, but it's not done really that well. And so the approach that we found works best is smart lockers. Wow, that's like genius, right? Home Depot, you can go to Home Depot and use the smart locker and pick up what you ordered yesterday, right? But the idea is that you know the part is there when you need it. It didn't walk away. It didn't just disappear and get consumed and nobody knew about it, and you had to ultimately buy it. You have what you need when it's there. And so in a case like these smart lockers that are shown here, customer would call and say, I need this part. We analyze, oh, that's one of the parts you have in your smart locker. Here, let me give you a 6-digit code. Walk up to that panel right there, punch in your 6-digit code, and the door pops. We'll send you the replacement. Put it back in that door when it gets there. We'll give you the code to put it in. So there's a lot of ways to do this, and Jay's got so many ways that he's to save money.
You know, easy on that is, you know, we have our biomed vans. You know, we'll get a couple parts in there, a couple hero kits or whatever. You have that bouncing around in the van, and then or on a shelf someplace, and you take it out of the box, and sure enough, out of box warranty. How do you get out of box warranty on something you bought 6 months ago? You know, in the parts locker, you pull it out and the clock starts ticking from the time you pull it out the parts locker. On top of that, I didn't pay for it until I entered that code and pulled it out of there. So I don't have that, I'm not carrying that liability of a part that may or may not work. Siemens can get away with that. Philips, all of our vendors can get away with that, where they can shotgun those parts, and if it didn't work, they can return it back to stock. Where you know, we had that part bouncing around, we try to return it back. You just bought that part no matter what. So there's and like I said, you know, we bought a spare 6 months ago. Where did it go? You know, you got 32 technicians. Who knows where it's at? So.
Okay, so that's parts. We'll go in a little bit more, but Jay's going to tell you a lot about service. This is an important part of it.
Yeah. Francis and me had this thing where we're going to go back and forth on this one. This one is more kind of a, you know, of a high level. You know, if we look at our you had your average. So our contracts are a little different from this. This is kind of a high level view of all this.
Let me tell you what the research says. The research says that on average, health systems have about 146 contracts in their under contract. 146. That seem high to anybody else besides me? That seem ridiculous? So obviously, an important part of this is the smart consolidation of the low-end contracts. So there's a lot of companies out there that give great solutions to that, right? Some of you work inside some of those companies that give great solutions to consolidation. It's just really smart. Yeah. Like the rolling number of contracts is about 146. We've seen some health systems with 200. Biomedical, HTM, imaging, you know, good. They're not at the peak. 146 is awful. I mean, if you know what your number is and you're at 146, you were the stat that we ultimately probably got. That's not good. And you know what's important here is it's important to know what is the benchmark. Where are your peers on that? And we just heard here, oh, it's got 70. Crisp number, knows what it is. That's really important. That's really good. 70, is that the right number? Or is that too high, right? And so the opportunity is to avoid the inconsistencies and consolidate where it makes sense, right? When you do that, every case study shows, and this is not a new stat, it's 15 to 20% savings on doing some of that piece. But it's nice to know that you have maybe a whole potpourri of agreements in place, but what do you do with that? How do you enact on that? And Jay's going to talk about a little bit of the stories that he has too. What you do is you use your data, you use your evidence to evaluate the contracts, and you build a strategy behind that. And once again, we go into that a lot, into this annual HTM report that's available once again on that QR code that's on the screen. So you can get a lot of insight as to what that looks like and how that might work. But Jay, just give an example.
So, and just going back to the contract for a sec, because there's no shop that can survive without contracts. There's some of them, it depends on your operations. I'm able to, again, I hate that name drop, but Siemens is a great partner. I'll give them a verbal PO, and there's an email acknowledgement, but they're moving. I mean, I don't need a full service contract with them. One of the things is with any product, if we have a lot of Siemens in our footprint in our Marshfield clinic. If Biomed looks good, Siemens looks good, the equipment's up and running, everybody looks good. So by them saying, oh, you don't have a contract, we're not gonna show up within 24 hours, it makes everybody look bad. And I sit on the capital committee, so I do have some input on what products we're selecting also. So there is sometimes that need for a contract where Medtronics, you have to have terms and conditions signed in. If you don't have a contract, you have to have terms and conditions. It's politics. The technicians say, I can't help you. It's just the way it is. But to get terms and conditions signed in today's world takes about a month with our legal system, and actually having that. I worked something out. I can sign off on some of those now. I finally did this after, I don't know how long I've been on Biomed forever, but I can actually sign off on these terms and conditions. But if you don't have that, you need a baseline contract so that you can bypass all the terms and conditions. They'll still take a PO, but they want those terms and conditions. So there is, long story short, there's always a mix with this. You're going to have some contracts in place with certain vendors and how you're operating.
And one last part of encouragement here, and broaden the aperture on how you think about this. It is important to look to consolidate, and there's some cost savings and opportunity to do things a lot smarter and keep better control. But the ultimate view on how you're helping your health system is giving them their equipment back to use for patients. That is the much bigger number, much larger than your savings that you can generate on an annual basis collectively doing all that. So think about using an evidence-based approach, using a uptime-based, equipment availability-based, scans-based, equipment availability as a very important metric for your success.
So we get into some of our war stories. Contracts are important. Here's some stuff where our service contracts have actually impeded our services. We acquired another hospital. They had 4-year point of or 5-year point of sale contracts still running out on their equipment. So we have to just assume those contracts. We can't just drop them. So we're living with these contracts. And I'm going to jump around for a sec. Even in the biomed worlds, we have the boomers. We're losing a lot of our senior staff. It's also in the vendors realm too, especially rural Wisconsin. We don't have those vendors. So when we have a full service contract on them, and they said that their commitment is next day, and they have an uptime report, well, there's nobody available to get there. Our machine's just down, and it's like, well, they can fly somebody in, but it won't be till the next day or the next day. So anyways, great story. We had a nuclear imaging piece of equipment. We fully serviced those at Marshfield. Our technician went over and just frontline as air code, whatever. I'm not going to pretend, but this is a simple power supply problem. We have a power supply in stock working in Marshfield. All we had to do is drive 30 minutes over to Eau Claire and put this power supply in. We can't do that because it's under full OEM. We can't put our power supply in there. That machine is down, and we have a full service contract, and we couldn't do anything about it. Those are those. It's like, ouch, And it doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, it seems to hit the headline. So yeah, we had some other, so the power supply is a great example. We did, I'm going to jump around again. So one of the career changers, it's a part of our part stocking. I wanted to expand on that a little bit with the parts locker. We had a critical access hospital, and getting pretty cocky. I'm dropping contracts left and right. It's only CT at this critical access hospital. It's like it's been running pretty solid. It was at the end of its point of sale contract. We're going to drop it. The tube only had like 120,000 scan seconds on it. It should have been no risk on it. So the tube takes it down. I had a similar situation a couple months before that. I got a tube out of Milwaukee, had that tube up. We had that thing replaced in 12 hours. In rural healthcare, that's pretty impressive. So I told the CNO, we'll have that up and running in 12 hours. Next morning, nope, the tube was my mistake. The tube's not coming out of Milwaukee, it's coming out of Nashville. Ooh, so I told the CNO, so she's getting a little more grumpier with me. Well, and so, okay, well, 24 hours. Well, then another, I don't know, it's probably another 8 hours into it. Believe it or not, it's true. The guy sent me a picture. The delivery truck, they couldn't fly it because Siemens tube, there's a pressure. Anyway, I don't know how that works, but they had to ship it via ground. No problem. It's going to be there in 24 hours. The truck starts on fire. So now I'm going to, so now I'm calling CNO again. So anyway, actually, I still think it was pretty good turnaround. We had a rescue truck go down there. We had the thing back up in 48 hours, but it's a critical access hospital. Everybody's excited, hit the headline. So I went to my friends at Parts Source. I says, we got to do something better. How do I compete with this? So I finally earned a $150,000 coffee table. It was before I got my office over at a warehouse area, and before their parts lockers came in. I had a tube sitting there, and actually we just utilized it. But it's a common tube. It's probably covers about 8 or 10 of our 17 CTs. So had that tube sitting there. So now I went from learned from every experience. So now I just went from 48 hours. So if of course, Lady Smith has been running wonderful now, and all my other critical access hospitals has been solid. But I have that tube there for my plan A, so I can go to most of my hospitals. So it's just working with our vendors and foresight, and again, at the end of the day, everybody needs to look good. It's not just me calling the CNO. Part Source, everybody has a little skin in the game. So,
and I'll tell you, if a little bit of that story sounds familiar, we're glad. If any of it sounds maybe unfamiliar, such as you've got to keep your clinical users involved in the decision making and updated on what's happening, we would highly encourage you to do that. Because again, ultimately, what our responsibility in this room is to drive clinical capacity. We know what 100% capacity looks like. Everything's available all the time. How do we keep it as close to 100% as we possibly can? And so Marshfield took the example of a relatively painful, although recovered, but painful experience with a critical access hospital CT and acted on it. They acted on it in a preventative way. They expanded on the concept and embraced the concept that says, look, nobody has room to keep parts on site. Nobody has room to keep parts on site. Y'all are saying, we are too, right? But if you're going to improve clinical availability, you solve the problem that represents. And you do so in a smart and efficient way. And you do so in a smart distributive way. And so don't let we don't have space, which is the first thing that will happen. And it is true, be anything but the starting point to the challenge. If your job is clinical capacity, that's your job, then those are the problems that you'll find that you'll be facing and the ones that you'll have ways to overcome.
Back in your earlier slide, the downtime, there's that one tube with that storage space. You could certainly pay for that $100,000 downtime associated with that equipment versus having a spot, a safe spot to put that to. By the way, I do need a new coffee table. The $150,000 one is, we use that up in Minocqua. It was nice when we have these, it was arcing. They had some low patient downtime. The thing had, I think it was 600,000 scans on it. So it's like, okay, it's time for it to go. The tires are bald. Let's change it out. And we put that, we didn't have to worry about ordering it, transfer. We brought that right up to our Minocqua hospital, very, very small hospital, but very dependent off their CT, had it swapped out, had it up and running overnight. It was a great success story, but I lost my coffee table.
Isn't that always the case, Jay? We come up with this great idea like a smart locker, and then you need parts that are too big to fit in a smart locker. Like, what is up with that? So the solution, smart cages. And that's actually part of the solution that is available today as well, is smart cages. Put the parts in a cage. And that turns out you can fit a lot of HTM parts in lockers, ultrasound and a lot of HTM things, but you can't fit a lot of imaging parts in lockers. They're just too big. And as we were running some of those pilots on how this could really be rolled out, so we could roll it out for some bigger groups, we had to tear apart the design that we had and redesign it with bigger lockers and bigger doors and more cages. So, hey, that's why you run pilots, right? All right.
Oh, this one's fun. More war stories. So, you're building your, I don't know where what stage of the, trying to save money in your department, what stage you're at with contracts, if you got, first thing, you try to centralize that spend. Second, look at what contracts are coming close to. It's not a perfect world, they all expire at different times because the department owned them before you. So there's maybe a potential for a master service contract. I'll give you our mammo example, but and then we'll talk a little further. But that mammo's on the top of my head. We started out. I think it was 17 mammography systems throughout the system. Our long-term tech left. It's like, well, he was actually a boomer and he was ready to go. And as we were growing that mammography throughout Marshall Clinic, I went to the OEM and I had about $1 million contract that would have gone on place on those. And again, I'm not plugging anything. There's vendors all over. There's a whole lot of third party, but I approached our RSA program at PartSource, and they stepped in and they knocked off about $250,000 off of all those contracts just by having that base contract. So going from OEM to third party, I could drop about 25% off of that. And then we started training our guys, working through it. I got Jason Zellner, amazing. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name because you guys are gonna poach him. He's just awesome. He came in, we started training him up. The first year out of the gate, we didn't do very well. Actually, none of us did very well in PartSource or us. We spent the whole $750,000. But year 2 into that RSA program, we started having some wins where the RSA program has what we call a share back. So if there's some management fees, but if I don't spend that whole $750,000, I get a check back for what we didn't spend. Year 1, what did I get? I got a big check. It was like a publisher clearinghouse check from PartSource. I wanted a big one. I wanted a dramatic. That one was, I think, $117,000. Just this last year, I ended up getting a $274,000 check back from, and it's not to Jay. It would have been great for the Jay Olson Pizza Fund, but it goes back towards our training. It goes back towards our service contract. It goes back, so I can take that money and put it back into that. And that's so that $18 million. I keep on dropping that contract by really doing nothing, just by joining us and having a good year and training my guy. Year 3, sadly, PartSource and the administrative fee on that contract, we saved a ton of money, but by year 3, year 4, I could do it on my own, and I could do it cheaper, better, faster. I'm still getting the parts from, so we dropped that contract altogether. So long story short, I went from $1 million to $350,000 a year was our last operational cost on those mammals. Great year, and we own it. and we have the clocks. You know, I'm watching the scan hours that I can predict the tube failures on it now. And this is with, you know, really, and I keep promising Jason, he's my lead DI guy. I'm doing this with one guy. So he's doing all the 17 mammo, and then in his spare time, he's still helping all the CTs and general biomed. So pretty cool story. So
that buys a lot of lining kugels.
yeah, you know, that's where. So again, I touched on that, but that 274,000, we have a training program right through RSTI where we can get credits by some of the parts we buy through that and by that credit back. So again, it just helps compound that and that reinvest into your technicians. That helps build a lot of longevity. You know, I think we're going to talk about that in a minute, but the technician talent. I got one more, and this is just when you're looking at, it's not all CT. Linear accelerators, this is just, I love to talk about this one. We had as you grow your program, you get into the mammo, you get into the cath. We've pretty much, you know, mammo, the cath lab, the CT, we're cutting teeth on MRIs right now, and we're getting full support with that. But the linear accelerators is one in the corner. We have 6 of them within Marshfield Clinic Health System. And those contracts on those little buggers are about $255,000 a year. I've seen them as high as $280,000. And just by taking them by risk, and you're going to have your bad years, but with 6 of them, with your risk pool, you can drop these average down to about $100,000 a year. So $150,000 per linear accelerator. The first year, Jay, you idiot, you know, you have a couple fail out of the gate, but law of averages over 3 years, I'm running these things at about $100,000 a piece. I got 2 technicians doing PMs on them. The PMs are amazing. They're doing, you know, again, not to, the OEM has ways they can do stuff, but my guys bring their sleeping bags and do their PMs overnight, and they do a great job on them, and it works out where I've seen manufacturer come through and they can do it 3 hours. Maybe they know what they can skip on it, but these guys are in the run for it. So long story short, there's it's a lot of risk, but the more stuff you get off those contracts and partner with the vendors, and again, Varian will still partner with us because they're still selling Varian to us. But you know, when I call them and I need their help, they're still there for us. But there's huge money out there. On the saving strategy, I would not go out for your first hospital and drop a critical access CT. You might be looking for a new job. But sorry, rambled on that. I wanted to touch on that. That was exciting. All right, running out of. Oh, this is yeah. So getting into consolidation. I have OEM contracts. This is a little bit out of scope of Da Vinci. If you still got to have that contract in place. If you can't beat them, join them. I think we got 7 Da Vinci robots within our system. So, and each one of these surgery centers had the Da Vinci on a separate contract. Da Vinci, you don't negotiate. Oh, I did in my days of Trimedics. I said, you know what, we can run these things at risk. And luckily, it wasn't my region that was in turn for renewal. It was my buddy Chad's and his region. Within 1 month, he spent more on his Da Vinci system than what probably, you know, half of our system would have cost for the whole year in contracts. So there's things that you don't drop, but certainly still consolidate them. Bring them. It's convenient for the vendor to have them all under one master service agreement, having them all renew at the same time. So even if you're up against the wall with that, you can still negotiate and bring them into consolidation. Where was I going to go with this? Oh, I think I touched on it. You know, I had my stages when you're bringing stuff in-house. Obviously, the plan ABC, we talked about that, but there's kind of I got a great graphic. It's taking and just dropping the contract and running it at risk with vendor coming in at time and material, you can, on average, you can probably drop about 25, and this is just doing it by yourself, you drop about 25% off your contract. Once you bring that in-house, I have, and then, again, this is very rough numbers, but statistically wise, you can bring your spend down from that 100% down to about drop about 25%, and then if you have a $100,000 contract, I can usually run those at about down to 30-40% yet. So you're looking at easy math. You drop that contract, you bring it in half, you're gonna save half. There you go. throw a easy math at that, and we're doing it today. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but again, that's at risk. Getting your talent in place and working through it. There it is, our workforce.
Yep.
So we're up to 32 technicians. Out of that, we have 6 diagnostic imaging technicians. And you got to fight for those guys to flip them over to a diagnostic image, but you get a couple in place, the stories that you can bring back on that, and how you keep these guys engaged. Again, I'm in rural Wisconsin. For me to go out and capture MRI, I got a veteran with 10 years of MRI and CT. I can't capture unicorns. They're not out there. And if I do get them, I can't retain them. I can't pay them enough. We got local guys. We train them. We give them the tools. We send them through with my RSA check. We send them through, and we don't fast line them. We don't leave them stranded. I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but some of the RSA opportunities, I'll send a guy through a CT school. Comes back, he gets CT1, and then he knows where the CT rooms are, and he starts working with the staff, and you get away with a couple of wins. I think we'll be covering this in the video, but there's a lot of the delay is, let's just go through a scenario. My CT goes down. I can have Siemens dial in, I always call it modem in, but they network in, they can kind of give a couple air codes on that. And that's another 3 hours, maybe next day, depends on when they come in to work on that. We have technology now where the guys are going through our RCTI school. They're downloading a log, they're walking over to the computer, they're uploading it, and RSTAI has got a path for them to start changing components and start taking measurements and start. And these are guys that are not seasoned. These are 2-year biomeds, and they're coming into this stuff and doing amazing stories with this. So, and what builds on that is these guys are local. They have these wins. One of my favorite titles when I was a pediatrics. When they start claiming ownership for you and say, that's my biomed guy, let me go give my biomed guy a call. It's a pretty nice feeling. You get that ownership, you're part of the team. My CT guy, when the guys can walk upstairs, it's a great place to work. It's a great place to be. So, yeah.
I'll tell you what, so a lot of great material, a lot of good things to talk about. We're gonna move ourselves forward to the AI portion of this discussion. And look, AI enabled action is a critical part of what we see is in the future. And I think there are a lot of companies, big and small, working towards their version of a solution to making our service personnel more productive and more efficient. And that's all good. But there's a difference between working on an AI solution and it being small and working on an AI solution and it being scaled. And what we want to show you here is a little bit of what is a little bit futuristic, but candidly, really not that futuristic. We have the spacecraft off the ground and we are landing on moon right now. Failure is not an option, as they say. Failure is not an option, but the idea of the tools is that analytics are the backbone of the decisions. The data is the backbone of the decisions. It means you have to have it. It means you have to have it at the right time. And so that is very important, and maybe one of the biggest challenges to getting proactive and getting more productive. We'll walk through a little bit, but there is an ability to unify CMMS data and system data, and then unify that with system workflow data. So you all are familiar with patient EHRs, right? We all are affected by our own EHR. We have one. Why doesn't the world have an equipment EHR? Why is equipment not monitored, tracked, and identified the same way as we are? They're just as important assets. They're critical to a hospital. So we'll talk about how that works. And Jay's already touched on, there's ways to say, if these are going to be expensive options, there's ways to save money up front and then replow those savings back into your organization. So we're going to run you through a quick video here and show you what this is looking like now. It's just a little slow. So interestingly enough, working inside of a technology company that has an incredible amount of engineering skill to program into systems has been an outstanding experience, because what we're showing right there is what's happening right now. We have 14 health systems online with that operating at this point. Now, we're still building its scope, and what's immediately available, I've got on the top of this slide, it's the hard downs, error code trends. It is, when Jay's CT has a problem, we know about it. We identify it with the technician, and the technician goes and takes care of it before the technologist even knew there was a problem at all. That's real. That's already happening. And this AI assistance and this troubleshooting guide that comes through based on what the error logs say, that's all happening. We've got the ability to do that, and that's all occurring right now. And I think a lot of people are doing that. That's a good thing. That's good for healthcare and good for us. But again, I think what we want to really stress is it's important to make that a solution at scale and not a solution across a couple dozen or a couple hundred pieces of equipment. That's just simply not going to do it for you as an industry and for your and the services and the customers that you take care of.
Yeah, they had that picture where they were streaming. That's real. That's today. We send our guy off to school. He comes back. He's got help. He's not up there. And again, you compound on that. You keep on having these wins. The radiology department actually likes you when you're walking in there because you're fixing something. You're not saying I'll be back in 2 hours. 2 days when I get the part. It's these are true wins. So yep.
They are. And last thing to share is this all has to be put into action, and action requires a plan, and action requires effort. And we're simply depicting here one of the timelines that Jay had implemented across his health system. And he takes his whole world, changes that he's rolling out there, and he breaks it down into small manageable projects. And then in this case, he'll break it down into every 60-day sprint. He'll accomplish and achieve the baseline information, the buy-in, the data gathering, then action on the data. He highly involves his HTM team and his clinicians in all of the work that he's done, and then ultimately rolling it out. And what do you do with this, Jay?
Keep on cycling it. It's never ending. There's contracts that are constantly coming up for renewal. What can I do with this contract? There's always something. It's the biggest game of whack-a-mole you ever seen. You just got to try to, instead of trying to pick each one off, you just you take a cycle and say, okay, let's start over again. What's coming up now? And what's our training? What's our talent pool? Or what can we find for to put on the RSA and still get another $200,000? I'm gonna shoot for a $200,000 check again this year. We'll see how we do.